And one thing that I was thinking about, and actually I had someone on the podcast, I had a neurosales expert on the podcast, and he said something that really struck with me because looking at my sales experience, I'm curious to hear what you would say. He's like, in typical sales, when you're learning how to sell, the sole focus usually, if you're looking, if let's say it's on a 1 to 10 scale, 80% of the time you were focusing on selling, not on the buyer. And I thought that was very interesting. We we're just thinking about how do we sell this product? What's the right words? How do I hook this guy? But we weren't talking about how the buyer psychology, how do they think? What are the challenges they face and how do all that? So why do you think there's a disconnect with such a disconnect between focusing on sales and focusing instead of focusing on the buyer, which is at the end of the day, the person that we need to make the sale?
All right. Well, what I'll do, Khaled, is I'll just work down this framework. I'll just
Sure.
go from top to bottom, just so we have a frame of reference that is accurate.
Yeah.
Because of what you mentioned at the beginning, the three loves is actually five loves. Okay.
Okay.
So the five loves of selling are this: love the impact. We just talked about when you get clear on why you want to solve this problem for the client. That's what you want to focus on first, right? The second is love the client, and this answers your question a little bit because the best way to love the client is to understand the client. Understanding is the best form of loving. And that this even touches on your previous question, which is, what if you don't love the product? Well, you got to ask yourself, are you the client? Because most of the times we might get confused that we are the client. And if we think we are the client, you're like, for example, if me and you, let's say we walk into a dealership to buy, let's use a fantastic example. Let's say we both want to buy a Lamborghini, right? And we walk in and then I go to you and I'm like, Khalid, like a Lamborghini, look at the price and the gas mileage isn't even that good. Why would you want to buy this car? It's clearly overpriced. When then you're like, well, Jason, that's not what I'm looking for. I want this car. It's been a dream car. It's a luxury item. I want to show it to my friends. I want to get the attention with it. And I can look at it and be like, you could get a Corolla and that would have better fuel mileage. And if my interest is a Corolla, and fuel mileage and looking at what are the benefits, the cost benefit analysis of a vehicle that gets me to point A to point B, I'll never buy a Lamborghini. But you might be very different and you're looking for that specific thing. So if I understood you, I would sell to you differently. So even if you're the car salesperson that can't afford a Lamborghini, you can't sell the person like you think he's you. They have very different needs, very different desires. And when you understand them, you can speak the correct language. Now, understanding the client, the second love is what I speak about. Then you can start thinking about the product. And you can optimize the product in the best way possible. I answered your question such as if you're the product, you're the client and you don't like the product, but you're not the client, you're just the seller. But what if your product is bad? Like, have you ever worked for a company where the product you're selling is bad? Well, the solution is simpler. Don't fake it till you make it. Just fix it. Like, fix the product. That should be your priority. And if you're within an organization that doesn't want to invest in fixing the product, you should start questioning where you're going to use your amazing skills in selling to push a company that actually will put the product. Like, think of any company out there and you tell them, hi, I'm a salesperson who truly is getting enthusiastic about selling any product or service that truly makes a difference. And if you have a good product and you're looking for people that are talented, enthusiastic, and know how to hit goals, then I'm your guy. You will never run out of a job. So you have the luxury as a salesperson to pick a company that has a product that is going to truly move the needle. You should not have to settle for a shitty product to sell. And
Yeah.
if you're working for a company that has a bad product, see that the leadership team is excited about improving it. Maybe you're just getting started. Maybe it's just not at the point it could be, but you're working at making it better and your intentions is on the impact. And when you know the company's why at the impact level and you know they understand the client and they're working on the product, you can maybe have some tolerance. But if you see that they just have a habit and a non-love perspective on the product, then I don't think that's the type of place that deserve an A-class type of salesperson. So, that's where I would lead it. Now, to get to the question, sorry, I had to work down
No,
this
no,
framework.
please. I love it.
Number 4 is the one I haven't talked about yet, but I'll tell you number 5 is love yourself, which we already covered, right? But the number 4, this is where there's a big mistake that happens because number 4 is kind of like that forbidden fruit. It's a love, but it could turn to lust, right? It's kind of like, it's like the sex of the sales process or the whole thing. And it's loving the process of selling. Loving the process of selling. And this is where a lot of people make a mistake. You will first fall in love with the process of selling. And when you do that, you're actually not coming from a place of love. You're coming from a place of fear and pride. And that's where manipulation happens. You feel that you're
Okay.
the one who's mastered the closing techniques. You've mastered the psychology to really just run the numbers and not care about the client, not care about the product, not care about the impact. But you know the neurological, scientific ways that you can manipulate people with triggers of influence, which I'm sure your trainer mentioned in the last episode, that really get people to take action. That's easy to learn and seductive to learn, because you can learn to control a lot of other people with the power of communication and language. And that is a forbidden fruit. And I say that most of the problems we see in salespeople, all the negative impressions we have, is people that have been tempted by the forbidden fruit of just loving the sales process, ignoring every other love. And that is not love, that is lust. It is temporary. It doesn't fulfill in the long term. And it usually leads with a lot of people with substance abuse or addiction issues, which I
Yeah.
find is actually a very curious correlation. When you see people that are very hardcore into a sales role and finding themselves selling something that they might not be proud of, that they just do it for the numbers, they feel like they're trying to fill a void by just having more pride and moving the needle and hitting those goals, but there's an insatiable desire that's never getting fed, and that's a confusion that you can fall into. And so there you have it. Love the impact, love the client, love the product, love the process, and love yourself. And I usually run them in that order.
That's, I think, looking back, so because I was familiar with the previous framework, which was the three, seeing how it's evolved into the five. I think the point that, for me personally, out of the ones you talked about, that I didn't maybe pay enough attention to, or didn't see the negative side of it, was loving the process. Because it's a phrase that a lot of people say, like when you're working towards a goal, love the process. But maybe in sales, because it's people involved, because it's almost like you correctly said, it's like an addiction. It's like that rush. It's like that ability to, oh, I was able to convince someone to do this. It gives you that sense of like power and confidence and validation. Like I controlled, in quotation marks, the person, for example.